On our 2023 trip to Seaside, Oregon, we decided to finally make a trip down to the Tillamook Air Museum, which we've driven by many times and never been in. If you love aviation history and movie memorabilia, World War II history, this doesn't look like much from the outside, but it is really cool. Definitely worth a stop. We came in here and had a quick bite in the cafe and then found out that the history of this building is almost as interesting as what's in the building. In 1942, the U.S. Navy was building hangars to house their K-class blimps that were being used for coastal patrol and convoy escorts when the Japanese were in the Pacific Ocean here. This was one of two buildings that was built and in a hurry. One was finished in August of 1943 and the second one was completed just 27 days. They were two of the largest wooden structures in the world, and they were actually large enough to fly a plane right through the building, as you can see in this photo. They stationed 8 K-class blimps here that were 252 feet long, 80 feet high, and filled with 425,000 cubic feet of helium. They had a long range and could sail off for 3 days, so they were used to patrol, and they were even seen patrolling the beach at Seaside over the years. So we came in and I was astonished at the size of the interior of this building. The first plane that caught our eye was this A-7 Corsair, and they have all kinds of info on all these planes here, but this particular plane participated in the 1983 invasion of Grenada, and then it was later sent on to the Middle East, where it was in Lebanon, flew multiple missions in Beirut in 1983, and also was part of the Gulf War in 1991 in Iraq. So it's really cool to just see these things up close, and you can kind of get up and look into the cockpits of some of them, so we took some time to look into the cockpits. The next really cool thing that I did not expect to see here is this F-14 Tomcat from the original Top Gun movie. It's one of only 3 remaining that were in that film. It was featured 3 times in the film, twice in the final dogfight, and once on deck on the carrier. Some of the original footage of this plane was also recycled and later used in 2 TV shows later in the 90s and the 2000s. The center of the hall has a bunch of training cockpits that you can look into and kind of get a sense of what they're like. And I was amazed at how tight the fit is in here. It looks like this guy's knees would be right against the instrument panels. Like, really fascinating to be able to look into these and see them up close and all the instruments and knobs and dials and gauges to look at here. I looked around the size of this building some more and some of the history of it. This is one of 2 of these hangars that were built here. Unfortunately, the other hangar was burned to the ground in a giant fire in 1992, and then this particular building was turned into a museum in 1994. The next cool movie piece of memorabilia here is part of a McDonnell F-4 Phantom that was used in the film Sully in 2016 with Tom Hanks. So we could see this plane up close, and there's some footage and some photos of Tom Hanks and Clint Eastwood sitting in the cockpit, so it was really cool to get a chance to see that up close. And right next to it is a room you can go into that has not only heat, which is the only heat in the building. If you're cold when you're in here, this is the room to pop into, but it has a whole bunch of World War II and World War I memorabilia. Just some really cool little tidbits. There's letters and uniforms and gear and just all kinds of cool stuff to kind of wander around in this room. That's really well done, well curated little room full of some really neat World War II and World War I history. I was actually pretty impressed at the level of stuff they fit in this little room. They had a whole display about women in World War II, and then this interesting case that was the home front, but it had really cool like ration cards and, you know, postcards and letters and all sorts of neat things. So if you're into World War II history, even if you're not into aviation, if you're in the area, this is worth a quick stop and just to come in and look at their World War II displays, and wait till you see what is on the other side of this hall for World War II. As you come out of that room, there are some vintage fire trucks, which were extremely interesting to see up close, and another look at how giant this room is. But this plane right here when we came around, as we kind of did like a counterclockwise circle. But the plane in the corner is a C-27A Spartan military transport plane that was capable of carrying 19,840 pounds of cargo, plus 53 troops or 36 stretchers. It was built in '92 and purchased by the Air Force, where it was sent to Panama and participated in the anti-drug operations in South America until it was retired. Here we come to the Hall of World War II and an air raid shelter replica, which was really cool to go into. This is amazing. You walk into these, there are 2 rooms like this, and they are full, and I mean full, of hand-carved, hand-painted replicas of some of the battleships from Pearl Harbor. I mean, everything about World War II. I don't know who did this, but we were laughing because we're like, there's probably no models left of any tanks anywhere in the country because they're all in these 2 rooms. These are so full of models. So if you're into World War II and like diorama model type things, this goes on forever. I took so much footage, I cut out most of it, and you can still see how much is here. There are just hundreds and hundreds of hand-painted little models, and to scale ships and tanks and aircraft carriers and all the material to do with World War II. And they actually have little dioramas of the actual battlefields and some of the main famous battles that happen. So there's individual little scenes and there's all the maps. It's just what, like, I did not expect to see this in an air museum. So this was really just wow, super interesting. Again, if you're into World War II history, even if you're not into planes, come into this building and just check out the World War II rooms that they have in here. Really surprising. And we did pop into the air raid shelter just to see how tight of a squeeze it is. It's just 2 cots and 4 cots to lay on, and that's it. And then next to this, there's actually a really nicely done small Holocaust room with some personal stories of survivors from the Holocaust. And then part of a fuselage of a TWA jet, which I found super interesting. It's kind of back from the late 60s. This is actually cut from a TWA plane that was purchased from Northwest Airlines in 1963, where it spent about 10 years flying coast to coast. They have all kinds of pictures of it at LA International Airport. In 1990, it was purchased by Warner Brothers for the film The Rookie. After that, it was purchased by a private owner who cut it up for scrap, but they saved this little bit of it. This is just from the front end, and it came to rest in the museum in 2018. Stepping out of that, you come across a long line of vintage tractors. There's just a whole bunch of sort of surprising things in this building. Giant line of tractors dating all the way back to basically the Stone Age of tractors. There is a blimp in the corner. I didn't go over to that, but we were really, really interested to see all these old tractors. I mean, there's tractors here with metal wheels. Super cool. There's some more of just the size, the sheer size of this room when you're in it is really amazing, to just stand inside of it and look at how much wood and how much work. And there's ladders that go up the side. My husband pointed out, look at, there's ladders. If you had to climb it, you could climb up that. Like, oh, please. So big. You could actually fly a plane through this. So this thing on the right that you see is a whole other display room that we went into that holds, do not miss that, it holds a ton of little private small planes. This is one of the coolest parts of this whole museum, and we almost walked right past it. There's a little French biplane here from World War I. There's some little kit, like single-person kit planes and gliders like the one that John Denver crashed in. Tons of really cool vintage planes sitting in this little side hallway. There is also an airworthy 1958 Russian MiG-17. There's a gyroplane in here. I would say if you're ever driving through Tillamook or up the Oregon coast, definitely make a stop here. This is really just a fun way to spend an afternoon wandering through some really cool history. And they even had some vintage cars in here. I don't know why, but there were just looks like three cars, and I fell in love with this red car so hard. There is a vintage ambulance, probably World War II era ambulance sitting here. I just couldn't get over the color of this red car. Take that car home. I want this car. And one of the coolest things in here is sitting at the very end of this room, and it's a Douglas A-26C Invader that was built in May of 1945, and it was made too late to enter the war, so it was put into storage. And then in 1955 they pulled it out and sent it to the Philippines for 3 years, and then it was a civilian transport and eventually came into the museum in 2006. So this was just a really fun place to wander. Do not miss this room if you come in here, but if you're on the coast, definitely make a stop here. This has got some really cool stuff to see. Hope you enjoyed this quick wander through the Tillamook Air Museum. We will be posting more of our seaside road trip in videos in our Oregon Coast playlist. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.